Life can change in the blink of an eye. One day you can be living life, and out of nowhere, something hits you that changes everything. In this episode, we get to hear from Brian Pitcher, who overcame one of those out of nowhere life events. Let's get started so that you can learn how Brian is now set up for whatever life throws at him, and how you can also prepare for life's unexpected events.
Are you a working professional but struggling to balance the workload of your career, family, obligations, and preparing for your financial future? If so, this podcast is for you. You've spent years learning your craft, and now it's time to focus on your financial future. This podcast will teach you what you need to retire wealthy and happy. Let's dive in.
Welcome to the Retire Wealthy and Happy podcast. Today, we have the totally awesome Brian Pitcher, who has accumulated many doors and multiple storage facilities here in Utah, Idaho, and Alabama. Good morning, Brian. How are you?
Good. How are you guys?
We're great. Thanks for being here with us this morning.
Yeah.
Brian, why don't you start off with kind of telling us your story? Give us some personal and business background.
Okay. So I moved to Utah to go to snowboard, go to school, went to the University of Utah, go Utes. Actually, it's go Utes. But I moved out here to go to school and snowboard and have a good time. Still didn't know what I wanted to do when I grew up, but my mom ended up giving me the famed book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And at the time I was flipping cars and he's talked about real estate. And I'm like, hey, I want to get into real estate, but I don't know how I'm going to do that, whatnot. When in 2003, my roommate said, hey, let's go get our real estate licenses. I'm like, sounds good. What do we do? And the next day we enrolled in real estate school while I was going to college and ended up getting my real estate license January of 2004. And my whole goal with that was to invest in real estate. 7 months later, luckily we had stated income loans at that point in time. I was able to buy my first house while I was going to college and rented it out to my roommates. And so that was my first experience of leveraging in a way that allowed me to live for free and get cash flow. So my roommates paid for the house, all the expenses, and I lived for free. And then shortly after I did it, I did another one, and I kept my first rental, moved into the second one, rented it all out, and the cash flow between both properties actually paid for the new boat that I bought and my truck payment. So the truck payment and the boat payment were covered through cash flow, and I'm like, hey, this works. I love this game. Started selling real estate. My first year in real estate, when I was in college, I made $45,000, and I experienced the first opportunity to pay lots of taxes. And then my second year, I'm at 140. And while I was still going to college, I was living the life. Did my first out of the country trip that was by my own choice. Went back to Brazil. I went to Brazil on my mission in 98 to 2000, but I went back in 2005 to go visit and go explore the whole country. And so I just started selling real estate then. Was doing really well. Ended up buying about 5 properties, 4 rental properties of my own. One was a triplex right by the U. I'll come back and visit that one in a little bit. But and then 2007, or I guess 2006, I got married to Brandy. We're still married. We have 2 kids, 13 or 12, almost 13 and 15. And I'm sorry, guys, I'm going to be itching my nose a lot. That's just because of the medication that I'm on. So sorry about that. So just laugh if you want. And so ended up getting married. And then right away, we got pregnant. And in 2007, I remember specifically when everything changed. August of 2007 is when the market started to shift. Were you guys in the business at that time?
I had a house that I inherited from my parents passing away. And I was also under contract on a lot to build a spec home. And I also had a cabinet shop down on South Temple and about 8th West.
Mm-hmm.
And that got taken using eminent domain right then. So I went through,
a rough spot,
a close call with bankruptcy, and came out by the skin of my teeth.
Yes, I understand. So 2007 happened. I realized that the previous to that, I was just working with Sphere of Influence, being a real estate agent. And all of a sudden, everybody that I was selling homes to couldn't qualify anymore because a lot of them were in college or just out of college. And so I moved my license over to Keller Williams because I needed to learn how to become a real agent, right? And so as soon as I got there, I hired my first assistant, started marketing because they were teaching me how to do that. And then I saw where the market was going. First quarter of 2008, I just knew what was happening. And so I started really focusing on short sales. And I was like, hey, who needs to short sell? Start teaching classes on how to negotiate. Most people would say, that's a lot of work. I'll just refer it to you. And so I started this short sell business where, I was closing 100 transactions a year. Throughout the crash, I negotiated hundreds of short sales. Some of those are still the coolest transactions I've ever done with new construction properties where the bank went bankrupt. Had to negotiate all the liens on it, find a cash buyer because the home was unfinished, and get the seller off without it even affecting his credit. So those were really cool. And then get them to buy another house as well. But those were like monster homes, 10,000 square feet, 12,000 square feet. Those were pretty good. I started the short sell business to where that went from 2008 till about the short sell game was in bulk through 2013. And it started in the upper end and started working its way all the way down to the bottom. Now I have a lot of regrets in that during that time because I had so many people that would have just given me their house with the current payment attached to it. But I was scared and I didn't know, and I didn't have the knowledge, and I was still recovering because I ended up having to short sell a couple of my own properties. I sold off all of the properties except for one, the one I lived in, and short sold two, sold three, short sold two, and kept the one I was in. And so if that ever comes again, I just want to buy them all. Just give me the house. I'll take it over. Like, give me some money. You can walk. I'm good. But I had like 50 of those I could have just taken over.
Wow.
Like very, very easily. All of them, most of them in Kearns, West Valley, Taylorsville, like all of them that would, and Rose Park, all of those things have 4X to 5X since then. But, whatever. I still got where I wanted to go, so not a big deal. But started doing all these short sells. Now, anybody who was in the market would see my name. My name was on all the listings because the short sells would stay on the market as long as I had it listed, and it was listed for a year and a half, and everyone saw my name. I got a ton of buyer leads from my buyer team, so I created a pretty substantial real estate team. I had, 2 to 3 buyer's agents, 3 assistants, myself, and was closing 100 transactions a year. On the outside looking in. And by the way, 100 transactions a year at that time brought me in about $450,000 in gross commission income after paying for marketing, after paying for every commission splits, office space, everything. I ended up walking away with somewhere between 150 and 175. At that time, and then taxes come out of that, and then paying off old debt from the crash, and there wasn't a whole lot left over. So, but where the cherry on top was the flips that were a byproduct of the short sell. So that's when I started flipping, was in about 2010. Now I was part of the flips either I had a short sell and I'd sell it to one of my buddies, and then they'd flip it and I'd get the relist on it. And if it was a good one, we'd bump up the commission. But either way, I was always the agent on those. But because I was really I knew all the other short sale agents. I said, "Hey, let me know. I'll be your buyer and keep the commission on it." So I started buying quite a few from other agents where they could keep the commission, and I'd buy it and flip the property. And so that's where I really started flipping, and that's where I made my money on the short sales was from the flips. Or not. I didn't make. To be correct, I didn't flip my own short sales. Like that's not legal. But I made money flipping homes during that short sale period. There we go. Got to be legit, right? And then, but I was working 80 hours a week. I was starting to take some better vacations, starting to finally get to where I thought I always wanted to be. But I was working a lot, 80 hours a week. I wasn't watching my kids grow up, and I had this thought in my head that if I just grind it out for 5 years, then I can live like nobody else can for the rest of my life. How many times have you heard that one?
Many.
Money. That's a lie. Like, because the carrot keeps on getting moved. So you do 5 years and then 5 years and then another 5 years because everything changes. But at the end of the day, you don't even know if you have 5 years to do that. But if you grind it out and you die in 4 years from now, and no one thinks they're going to die, right? But I had that opportunity to go through that where it was a possibility that I could die. So I ended up being diagnosed in 2013 with a brain tumor on my pituitary gland. It's called acromegaly. Tony Robbins has the same thing, except he got his before his growth plates closed. I got mine after. Andre the Giant also had acromegaly, and it not only does it cause you to grow outside, it causes your internal organs to grow, like your heart and your liver and things like that. The only issue with your heart growing too big is the valves don't grow with the heart, and so you end up having leaky heart valves, and then you end up with a heart attack. And so that's why Andre the Giant died at 43. And so I found out that I had this brain tumor, and it was causing my body to create too much human growth hormone, which is why I felt like shit all the time, because I had severe arthritis in all of my joints. Because I quit working out in 2006 when I blew out my shoulder and had surgery, and it just never truly recovered. I was always in pain. And then, I was always working, and so I wasn't working out because I was always working. And so I was, I was miserable. But a lot of that was because of that brain tumor, the human growth hormone I was getting. So I did. So I found out I had this brain tumor, and started getting scheduled. Says, "All right, we need to do the brain surgery." I said, "Okay, let's do it." So what they did is they go through your nose. So they snip the little piece of skin in the middle, move it and so that it opens it up. They move the septum to the side, and it's a straight shot to the front of the brain, right behind the optical nerves. And then they pop into chisel into that bone structure to get into that little cavity there. And so, crazy me, I watched that surgery the night before I went in for surgery on YouTube. I'm like, I can't sleep. I need to know what they're doing. So I watched it and I was like, wow, that's crazy. So the very next morning, I was in May. It was the end of May, and I was on the top floor of the Intermountain Medical Center there in the mothership in Murray. And I was looking out at the Wasatch Front mountain range, and it was a beautiful morning, clear skies, sun was coming over the mountains. And I remember looking at those mountains, and this thought went through my mind. If things don't go right here, that's the last thing I'll ever see. And I just thought about that. And I thought, I am sacrificing all of this time for work. And my kids, who are 3 and 6, don't even miss me. I'm not even around enough for them to miss me. And I made a decision at that moment that when I get through this, if I get through this, that I'm going to quit being a real estate agent altogether. I need to find something different. I got to find something different because I'm sacrificing my life and I'm not even watching my kids grow up. I justified it saying that I was going to do whatever it takes to be a good dad and provide for my kids. But being a good dad is more than just providing for your kids. In fact, most of them don't really care if you provide for them you give them food and shelter and clothes and whatnot. I mean, that's providing for them, but we always want to do better than what we did than what we had when we grew up. But even if they had what we had grown up, that is, and most of them would prefer to spend more time with us than have more things. And that was something that I had to get corrected in my mind because there's always justification on why we do what we do. And I was justifying that I needed to go to work so I could create this lifestyle for us all later on. But later on, as I found out, may never come. Because if you're not around long enough, then you don't get past that 5 years. Because if I didn't get operated on and get this taken care of, I had a death sentence. 5 years, 7 years, something like that. It brings up a lot of emotions going back to that period of time and thinking about everything that happened. And right off the bat, I was thinking, why me? Why do I got to deal with this? Like, what I do wrong? But then I remember, that's the natural way to think. But then I remember Tony Robbins and why is this happening for me? Like, why is this happening for me? And what I realize is that, and what I choose to believe is that happened so that I could change have that shock that would allow me to change my life and design it the way I want it and make sure I prioritize what needs to be prioritized. So I vowed to change my career. So I ended up feeling better that summer after my surgery in May. And then I started to feel like shit again. Come to find out the brain tumor was growing back. So I had to go in a second time for the same surgery. And this time in the process, they knocked out my pituitary gland. So now I'm on hormone replacement for everything. Been through a ton of surgeries to fix it. To follow up on the brain surgery, or from the brain tumor effectiveness. So it caused my lower jaw to keep growing. So I had a 10 millimeter underbite or 1 full centimeter underbite. So when I chewed food, I couldn't chew it well enough and it always gets stuck in my throat and I had to force it down with water or whatever. And so I had to have this jaw surgery. So I had 2.5 years of braces to get me ready for the jaw surgery. And then I took 5 millimeters out of the bottom here and slid it back. And then they cut the whole top section off and moved it forward 5 millimeters and re-anchored it in. And then I had rubber bands everywhere to keep everything in alignment. And 2.5 years of braces after that to get everything lined up in the right spots, including shift, because it was shifted to one side and needed to be pulled back. Crazy stuff. That is actually the most painful thing that I've ever been through in my life because my body doesn't regulate salt and I got low on my salt level. And just crazy stuff. But once again, it was like, what's important here? What's important? So that was in 2016. That was 3 years after the brain tumor. Now, by this time, I'd already changed my career in a way where I'd been primarily agent to where I went to primarily flip. So 2014, now I'm coming back. So 2014 is when I was searching around. Okay, who do I know that's being successful and what are they doing? And I took tons of people to lunch and then ended up taking my buddy Scott Dilley to lunch. You guys know Scott? Roger, you know Scott, don't you?
I don't think so.
No? Okay. Scott and Will Leska are now doing apartments together. But anyway, Scott said, dude, you should join this mastermind. And it's like 15 grand for the year. And I'm like, dude, I haven't really even worked in a year. I've just been on cruise control, closing out all those short sales. I haven't really made a ton of money. And he said, well, you can check it out for $1,000. He said, what I've learned from it has been amazing. And I'm like, I really had to really question, do I spend the money I didn't have to go try something out that I didn't know? Or do I just keep doing what I'm doing, which really isn't working? And I'm like, you know what? I'm asking, the universe provided me something. I don't know if it'll work or not, but I gotta go investigate. So I spent the $1,500 to travel to Dallas to go to this mastermind. And the mastermind at that time was called Collective Genius. And Collective Genius at that time was only 3 years old, and there was only 60 of us in the room. And or maybe 50, 60, something like that. It was still on the beginning of its growth phase. You're familiar with Collective Genius, right, Roger?
Oh yeah, I know several people that are rock stars in that group. Yeah.
So I was in there towards the beginning, and once I was there, I realized all these guys are flipping homes. They're wholesaling homes. They're doing stuff in volume, and they're marketing. And I'm like, oh man, this is where I learn from. So I negotiated a payment plan with Jason Medley, who was part of that, and I joined it. And then I found a way to make the money happen, and I started learning from all these guys. And when you go to this mastermind, they put you in, and you do a presentation on what your business is, and then you're supposed to give something to the group. And then you can ask something from the group. Several times in a row, when I was going up for my ask, and I'm still trying to convert my business to more flips, they just kept telling me, quit thinking like an agent. You're thinking like an agent. You need to think like an investor. Think like an investor. Think like an investor. And I didn't really understand that until I was going in, because I was offering the agent side too many times, and I was losing the investment deal because I offered the agent side. So after I passed up on a $40,000 flip, like quick flip, and I realized that I listed the property and sold it to somebody else that flipped it, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm never doing that again. So that's when I truly decided, okay, I am an investor. So I started flipping like 30 to 40 homes a year pretty quickly, and that completely changed my life. And then I started having problems with the division of real estate in 2016, 2017, something like that. They were telling me it was 2016, because of my marketing. Everyone kept turning me in for my marketing, and I went up and spoke with Van at the division, and I'm like, Van, it's not good to see you again, dude. But he, I brought my broker there, and I'm like, man, just tell me how to do it right, so I don't have to come in and keep seeing you every month. And he's like, that's your broker's job. And I looked at my broker and then looked back at him, and I said, obviously that ain't working, is it? So tell me what to do so I can do this right. He said, I'm just enforcement. I'm not going to tell you how to do it right. And I said, all right, well, then let's talk about the elephant in the room here. I don't need you. I don't need to have my real estate license to do what I do. And if you're not going to help me find a way to do this, to do it right, so that you don't keep fining me, then I'm just going to terminate my license. And he said, well, you got to do what you got to do. I said, okay. So 30 days later, I turned in my license. I terminated it just because of that. Now that sent shockwaves throughout the whole community, because I was one of the top agents that just turned in my license. And it was so freeing to say no. Now I could only say yes to the investment side. And I just kept on marketing, kept on flipping. And then everything changed in 2019. We had the inverted yield curve happen. I still flip some homes, but starting to take some losses. And I saw it coming, because I had a Puerto Rico deal, a St. George seller financing deal that went bad, and I had two flips, one in Holiday, one in Conwood Heights. And between all four of them, I could see I was going to take some losses in 2019. I didn't end up selling those until first quarter of 2020. And I ended up taking a $250,000 loss on those properties, which is the first time I'd ever taken a loss like that. So luckily I had 4 rental properties to cover the losses. But in 2019, I was like, I need to find something else to do. Like this isn't working for me. I have a little bit of time here before I'm running out of money, but I got to find something else to do. And so I just started going back and questioning myself, what is it that I really want? What do I really want? Well, I really want to get off the treadmill. I want to find something that pays me forever that I do once. So I thought, all right, it's time to go for cash flow. It's time to go into apartments. And about that time, too, Jeff Rappaport ended up sending out 2 apartments in Pocatello, Idaho. So I bought them. I bought them and did the Burr method with those apartments in Pocatello. And then I'm like, okay, well, if I'm being Pocatello, I guess I'm going to just shift my marketing gun out to there. And I started buying 4 duplexes, 4plexes, other apartments, a 6plex. So I ended up acquiring 80 doors there in within 2 years. And I just used private capital to do it. I didn't have any syndications or anything like that. And I acquired another 40 doors in Utah County, Salt Lake County, and Tooele County. And so between all that, I have 120 doors. Within 2 years, I had 2 duplexes in 2019, which was 4 doors, up to 120 doors, and put my cash flow up to $24,000 a month during that period of time. And that changed my life. That absolutely changed my life, changed my family life. And upon hitting that goal, I ended up flipping an 8plex up in Idaho Falls because I bought it for $400 and I'm selling it for $780 or something. It was like $350,000 in profit. I'm like, dude, I got to take this. This is going to change everything. And I finally went to my wife and I said, all right, babe, you can take $35,000 and book whatever vacation you want. She's like, what? And I said, whatever vacation you want. She's like, you're not going to tell me to do this and then take it away, are you? I said, no. Whatever vacation you want. And so we ended up going last May. We ended up going to Europe flew into Barcelona, hopped on Royal Caribbean, Princess Cruise, one of the cruise lines, all through the Mediterranean, ended up in Athens and flew home went to Amsterdam and went back to Salt Lake, and that was with my wife and both my girls. And it ignited a travel bug for both of them. I also had another trip that was booked from during COVID. Canceled it. We were going to go. My buddy Kyler and I were going to go snowboarding in Chile. Booked it, and we went down there for 2 weeks. And that was in September. It was just the best on the planet because the snow was disappointing, but it was still cool to go. Then I joined last May. I ended up joining Jimmy Rex's We Are the They men's group. And I went to Iceland. I went to the Bahamas with them last spring, and then Iceland in November with those guys. That's a pretty cool group to be part of. Lots of networking, lots of good guys from Utah that are in there. And so kind of now I between with all the traveling I do, I have 4 events for We Are the They somewhere around Utah most of the time, so like or West Coast, except for the adventure trips. And then I have 4 masterminds I go to with Investor Fuel, the Investor Fuel Cash Flow group, which I'm in right now. And then I have my kids' dance and gymnastics competitions that we travel to, and then we try and fit some family vacations in there, like Lake Powell, or go up to where I grew up at Coeur d'Alene, and so yeah, there is a lot of freaking traveling. And I also go to a bunch of storage unit conferences now. So 20, or when the rates started cranking up, it made it so none of the multifamily deals I was buying would work anymore. I couldn't, unless I get it on seller financing, I can't buy it unless they're willing to take a really big discount, which I'm still willing to do. But what I found is that there was storage units, mom and pop storage units that you can go pick up for 50% of the value after you raise the rents. And so I started buying storage units. So my partners and I picked up 3 storage units in Montgomery, Alabama. And so my buddy Lath, who's done the same thing I've done just down in Vegas, and we brought on a partner that used to be a property manager for self-storage for the last decade for a REIT. And we brought him on as a partner. So he wants to be in the ownership role versus an employee role. And our plan now is to go and build a massive storage portfolio. We are also going to be managing storage units for other people as well, anywhere in the country. And so self-storage management company is going to do really well also. And there's a real need for that because most management companies suck. So holy cow, I just spoke for a long time, but that's my story. There's a lot of information in there.
It was awesome. And I remember when you gave up your license, I knew you a little bit back then. And I remember thinking that you and Jeff Rappaport were doing some kind of partnership. I didn't know how that related to each other. But yeah, that was a nice walk down memory lane and a good background.
Yeah. Thank you.
Brian, I appreciate you sharing your story. And I was just taking some mental notes when you were speaking. One of the things I pulled out from your story there is that you're willing to put in a lot of work, which I think is an extremely important point to be discussing here, because I mean, to really set yourself up for success, you have to be willing to put the work in. There is no easy winning the lottery scenario. You got to have a plan and you got to be willing to work your plan. And I also like how much you were willing to share about your personal experience with your health and how that shifted your mindset, because I think a lot of us have that mentality of, oh, I'm going to work really hard right now, and then in the future, it's going to be different. And the reality is that might not ever happen.
It's never different.
It's never different. So it's a mindset shift today about planning and taking advantage of the time we have right now with the people that we love. Because you were talking about wanting to spend more time with your kids and your wife, and that's that's really what this life is about, right? Is the relationships that we have with those that we care most about. And I think it's great to watch as you shifted. You said it several times that you had to shift the investor mentality because you were working as an agent. That's more of so we talked quite a bit about Rich Dad Poor Dad, which you mentioned as well. And he talks about the difference between being self-employed or being an investor. So as an agent, you were self-employed, but then you had to switch to the investor mentality. And when you were able to do that, it was able to help you put your life on a trajectory to get into the position that you wanted to get into. Am I summarizing that correctly there, Brian?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So thank you for sharing all those thoughts. And I hope our listeners were able to pull that out from your story as well.
Yeah.
I think that we lost you a little bit. And when you said you gave your wife $35,000 to plan whatever trip you were going to do, we had a breakup in the flow of the.
Oh, okay.
I couldn't hear you. So I caught a little bit of your Barcelona and I think you said Amsterdam, but we lost a lot of that. So if you could recap what you said, the $35,000. And so you went on a trip and start there and just kind of recap that.
So yeah, we went. She wanted to see Europe, and the best way to do that was to do it on a cruise. And so I think we did Royal Caribbean, and we started off in Barcelona and visited Gibraltar, Marseille, France. We were multiple spots in Italy, Turkey, Greece, and ended up in Greece. We went to Rome, like bunch of different places. And then we spent 3 days in Athens and then 2 days and then flew to Amsterdam for 2 days and then came back to Salt Lake. Ended up being 3.5 weeks, which is the longest vacation I have ever taken in my life. And what was best about that is because of the position that I was in with real estate, I maybe needed to return a few emails here and there, but I didn't. Everything was operating without me. It was the best freedom that I've ever felt in my whole career, being able to do whatever I want. But you know what? what I've found is that there are times in your life when you're lopsided. Sometimes, like if you go through a major health issue, you're going to be more focused on your health, and you're going to put a lot of time into your health, and other things are going to suffer because of that. But you got to focus on your health. Sometimes you got to put in a bunch of time to save your business, and you're going to focus on that, and time with your health and your family is going to go down. But the one thing that happens, and Tony Robbins says this, is that if you compare your career, your health, and your relationships, and they're all crystal balls. Like if you drop the family one, and if you drop the health one, those balls break. But your career is like a bouncy ball; it'll bounce back. So if you're ever going to drop one, drop the career, take a time out. It'll always bounce back, but your health won't, and your family won't, because that's where you end up getting divorced. Most people sacrifice their health and spend all their time making money, and then when their health goes, they spend all their money trying to get their health back. And if they would just keep themselves healthy as they went, and even if they didn't make as much, they'd still be in a better spot at the end of the day. And not just at the end, but all the way along the way.
I really like that analogy about the bouncy ball.
Yeah. Part of that is just living a life with no regret. Living a life with no regrets means that you don't regret not spending time with your kids.
You answered my question before I could even answer it, Brian. I was going to say, how have things changed regarding your work-life balance? And you just answered.
If you read this script, you've already gone through like all the questions that I could like put together. It was really good.
Do you want to talk? I mean, you could ask more about future, or he's already talked about that quite a bit.
Definitely.
Well, let him ask the question first, Brian.
Yeah.
Where will you be in 5 years?
In 5 years, I'm going to see myself in an ownership capacity on 30 to 40 storage unit facilities. I will probably have sold off my entire multifamily portfolio by then. And we'll be managing somewhere around 100 facilities for other investors as well, and be a good player in the storage unit game. I don't see myself ever having to leave that game because I think that that's just a stable asset class that is growing, and it's going to be the smaller houses get, the more storage facilities need to be around. And even when you build houses, they don't have attics anymore because they build the trusses in a shop and ship them there, versus it used to be built on site, which then you could have an attic. And a lot of them are going away from basements too. So in areas where there's no basements, there's just no storage. And a lot of these communities are having smaller and smaller lot sizes, with regulations of saying you can't park a boat here, you can't park an RV here, you can only have 2 cars here, like all these regulations, which means more and more people are going to have to go rent a storage unit. It's either rent a storage unit for a fee per month, or go buy a new house so they can store all their stuff. For most people, it's better off just getting a storage unit.
Good point.
So, and then as far as time goes, my time really won't change, because I try to take as much time as long as my kids are off of school and off of dance and gymnastics. I try to take them on really good vacations, and we're trying to do more vacations out of the country while they're in high school, because that helps them appreciate what they have here. The more that they can learn about other cultures, both my daughters learned a lot by being in Italy and watching how people lived there. Most people didn't have cars. They walked to work, they walked home, they walked to the store. They don't have nearly as much stuff. The houses are smaller. They don't need as much. And that was a good thing for my kids to see. When we went to Mexico, they got to see what people live like in a third world country. Parts of Mexico are first and second world, but you don't have to go very far outside of those main areas to find third world conditions. And so that was really good for my daughters to see that as well and say, you know, appreciate what you have. It's until they live in those conditions, they're not really truly going to appreciate it, but it gives them, at least it gives them a little bit of an awakening. But so, I mean, experiences, I do have a lot of toys, but those toys create experiences with the boat and the motorcycles and that kind of stuff. So I want my kids to not be afraid to try things. And so I got them motorcycles, and now they're learning how to ride motorcycles. I got them, you know, we take them to the boat. We've been doing that since they were young. But now we're going on more vacations and showing up, teaching them the world, and they're able to do different things, different experiences. My oldest daughter's got her learner's permit right now, and she's scaring everybody, but it's fun. But yeah, she's really excited, and they love to snowboard. So we try to go snowboarding as much as we can. This year, even though this year has been an amazing snow year, I'm lopsided on the work side because I'm building these two businesses. So once these are built and they start to get consistent, I'll be able to take more time off and do all the things I love to do because I have all the cash flow in the world to do whatever I want.
That's awesome. Hey, Brian, our podcast, as you know, is called Retire Wealthy and Happy. And we've enjoyed hearing your story. I want to see if we can pull any more details out of your experience. As you've been growing your life and your companies, are there any specific action items that you'd like to share with our audience about things that they could be doing to set themselves up for success so that they can have a life similar to yours that you have now?
Number one, pay the money to get educated. Pay the money to join the masterminds. A lot of people try to do it on their own and they wing it. And I tell you what, it's way cheaper to pay for the education up front than it is to pay for the losses on the back as an investor. Because there's a learning curve there. There's always a learning curve. And the more you can copy other people instead of blazing your own trail, the more money you'll make and the faster you'll be able to do it. Because it'll take, like my apartments, I was able to acquire those 120 units or 114 units in 2 years, basically, 2 years and 4 months or so. For a lot of other people, that'd take them 20 years. But I was able to, I saw what someone else did with apartments. I learned how to structure the money. And I had enough money raised to be able to help me do that. And I know how to market. And so I just pointed the marketing gun, got that going, and acquired as many as I possibly could as fast as I could. And that's because I copied other people. I paid the money to be in the room, and I copied other people, what other people do. So if you're truly going to do this, spend the $5,000, the $10,000, $15,000, whatever it is, to be in the room and be able to network and copy what other people are doing, and they're happy to share it with you. Like the higher up in not the ladder's not the right word.
Food chain.
Food chain's a good one. The higher up the food chain you go, you think that it's a dog eat dog world, but it's not. Like it's lonely when you're at the top. But that's if you climb your own ladder. If you climb a ladder that quite a few people have climbed, the smaller the group gets, the more friendly people are, because there's just not as much competition, and there's a lot more collaboration. Because like to do the big deals, whether it's apartments or storage units, like the big ones, where you're dealing with, $5 million, $10 million purchase price, and you're going to flip that thing for double what it's worth in 5 years, or double what you bought it for. You can't do those deals by yourself. You have to have partnerships. And if you're going to get a partnership, where do you find your partners? Well, in those rooms. And so you need, in this, to be able to finally graduate out of the grind, playing small, you have to pay to play. And the sooner you can grasp that, the faster you'll run. You'll be able to run.
So would you say that investor fuel cash flow is also a good mastermind for self-storage?
It's going to be because I'm there. There are other masterminds. I will probably be joining another one that is more focused on storage units, but I haven't done that yet. But I joined Investor Fuel Cash Flow Group when I was still building my apartment portfolio. And we'll still, honestly, I'll probably be marketing for multifamily and I'll still acquire some, but I know I need to be in I need to be in a room where there's more people doing storage units.
You know, I have one for sale, right?
Oh, I know. I like buying ones that are like 20, 30 years old and, no different than buying a flip or buying a new construction or buying one that needs to be rehabbed. I like those rehabs a lot better, but just that financially, that's what makes sense for me at the moment. But yes, I do know you have that one for sale. And I pitched it multiple times, by the way.
It's hitting 35% occupancy last rent roll we got. So
wow,
it's bumped up, and I won't say anything about the property manager, but in the early time, we were really worried that they weren't the right people, and it looked like a 30-month stabilization, and now it's on track for more like an 18 months. So, but anyways. If you do find a mastermind that's self-storage, I would love to at least audit it and join it.
Honestly, we might just end up creating our own.
We definitely have several locals, and the big conglomerate Extra Space is here locally too. So,
right, they like to gobble everybody up,
which is fine if you're selling.
That's true.
Their model is a lot like what you said, where they property manage, but they also groom them. So they groom them for them to buy. So that's a pretty incredible place to be.
It's true.
You said
Brian,
something. I have one more question if I can. You said something about motorcycles, and I think Earl would get mad at us if we didn't at least drop back and ask you what motorcycles you have.
Oh, these are all just dirt bikes. I don't do street bikes. So I had a KX250 for a little while, but which is great for motocross and whatnot, but it's not great for trail riding when you have short legs, which I do. That brain tumor did not help me get longer legs. But no, I just got some dirt bikes, a couple Honda 125s, Kawasaki 110. And now I got a Yamaha 230, and a great bike, way better trail riding, and more importantly, both my feet can touch, so that's good.
I have a CR 250. It's a 98, and then I have a Trail 90. It's a 76 with 500 miles.
Wow!
And then I have a BMW GS. So, and I totally agree.
That's the street bike.
That's the Enduro. I have other street bikes. I have a Hayabusa and a ZX14 and a FJ Sport Tour. But I love the dirt, and I, have also got at least a couple of my kids into the dirt and dirt biking and showed them the love.
It's a fun sport. And if you fall, it doesn't hurt. You bounce.
And you don't have to worry about people on their cell phone looking at Facebook.
Right. Yeah, it's true. It's true. No, I did drive a bullet bike in college. And there were several really close calls. And so after that, I was like, no, I'm done. I'll ride dirt bikes, but I will not drive street bikes. It's just too dangerous for me.
Yep. Agreed.
We might have to have the editor throw this back a couple minutes, but Brian, I just wanted to add, I appreciate you saying that investing in yourself is an important thing to be considering, because we talk a lot about investing in general, but investing in yourself is an extremely important principle, because if you're not willing to invest in yourself, either with financial resources or with the time, a lot of the things you're not able to learn. You're not able to know what you don't know, and be able to really put yourself in the best position to grow your wealth and to reach the goals that you're striving for. So investing in yourself is a great principle that we should be remembering to include into our strategy.
So I was at a Super Bowl party, and I was that my buddy Jimmy Rex put on for his men's group. And I was sitting next to a guy, and he said, I know you're an investor. He said, what would you do if you only had 20 grand to invest? Where would you put it? I thought about it, and I said, well, if you only have 20 grand to invest, it means you haven't learned how to make enough money yet, which means you need to spend it on self-development. Like, unless you have at least 100 grand, you're not really in a position to truly invest. You're better off to invest in yourself first. Once you've invested in yourself and you've learned how to make more money, now you're going to be able to do way better investing down the road. And he said, well, it's for my son. He's 16 right now. And I'm like, oh, well, that's kind of different. I said, well, then I would change it just a little bit. I said, I would try and get that to 30 or 40 grand before he's 18, and then go buy his first owner-occupied duplex or owner-occupied fourplex. And then after a year, he can rent out the rooms where he's at, make sure it covers itself, and then he can go do it again. Go do it again. And if by the time he's 25, 26, he's got 4 or 5 fourplexes or duplexes, owner-occupied, with owner-occupied loans on him. And if that's all he ever did, he'd make millions doing that. And just because the leverage he's able to get. And then the rest of the time, it's just self-development and learn how to be a real investor. You have to copy people that are real investors in order to be one. The most people go, if they want to be a real estate investor, they go and talk to a real estate agent who has never invested. Most of them. So a lot of agents don't even own their own home, which is crazy. But if you want to be an investor, you need to go talk to investors, not to a real estate agent. Because most real estate agents think that they're investors, but they really aren't, because they haven't flipped. They haven't done all the crazy type transactions. They don't have any rental properties. They have no idea. And most true investors, they may have their license, but they're not actively using it for the most part.
Very true.
You got other questions, Roger? Should we do the final 4?
Yeah, let's be respectful of his time and try and wrap this up. So, any questions you want us to ask you that we didn't touch on? We got your life story into 1 hour, so it's the abridged version, but
Abridged, yeah.
Oh, I do have one other thing to say to you. And I'm a big fan of Jimmy Rex. Like, I preface it here because I didn't do it. I went to Cody Hoffein's meetup where they did the Joe Homebuyer thing, and they had Jimmy Rex as the keynote speaker. Mm-hmm. And I was at American Fork High School when Jimmy Rex had the fireworks and the neighbor burned the tree down. I've seen that video where Jimmy Rex was captaining the houseboat in Lake Powell, and it was going down, and they were knee deep in water, acting all courageous and everything else. And he spoke at Cody Hoffein's thing, and I asked him a question, and I know this deal quite intimately, but it's at the time, Jimmy Rex was the buyer's agent for the biggest real estate deal ever in Utah. Mm-hmm. And I looked at that thing. I've seen the MLS, a bunch of times. I have a friend his wife's a painter, and one of the paintings in there was like her style. And I talked to him about that. And I did the dreaming of, what if I was to get that commission? $32 million house, 3% buyer's agent commission. And I did the math on it when it sold, and I'm like, $975,000. I mean, that's a good day, right?
That was a good day. He only spent 30 minutes on that transaction.
And I asked Jimmy, like, were you mad that it was $25,000 from a 7-figure commission? And he jumped me. He's like, man, get out of your way. You're getting in your own way. I'm all, Jimmy, come on, man. It was a joke. Like, the whole entire room was like 60, 70 people that we all want like a $10,000, $30,000 wholesale fee. That would be beautiful. And he just went ahead and made it's $1 million. And he's happy. And I'm sitting here like, dude, all right, my foot is in my mouth. I apologize. I should have said, I love you. You know, your fireworks show brought me value. I've laughed so many times on that houseboat thing. But if you ever talk to him, just be like, hey, Roger's one of your friends, man.
So you don't have to put this on there, but Jimmy is opening up his third group on his leadership group, which is like 15 grand a year to be part of it. And he's opened it up like next month. If you want to be part of that, there's a lot of value there, a lot of good people, a lot of business owners that are in there. And luckily it's like another mastermind where where it's 15 grand for the year or $1,500 a month, whichever one you want to pick. And it's a barrier of entry for a lot of people. So you end up getting some really good quality people in there, and they're local. So you get to meet a bunch of local guys that are crushing it, you know. And I'm finding a lot of value in it.
That'd be awesome.
So anyway, that doesn't have to be part of this thing, but just FYI, he's going to be launching that pretty quick.
Do you know Chris Warnick?
Yeah, he's in my group.
He's one of the owners of my Airbnbs with me.
Okay.
He's the only other partner, but all right. Cool.
Yeah. We went and played it. We went and played a game of whack fuck in St. George.
Oh, Chris is crazy. We went to a scramble that was one of the general contractors. Like, it was a siding company, I think, that put it on. Mm-hmm. And he, myself, one of my other friends that's a really good golfer, and this one crazy guy friend of ours played in a 4-man best ball scramble, and we hit a 58.
Wow. Impressive.
Chris was just killing it. He's awesome. All right. Well, Ben, you want to lead us into the final four?
Let's do it. Brian, now it's time for the final four. These are questions we like to ask every guest that we have on their show. So without further ado, let's jump in and get some answers to these questions. So Brian, what is your favorite business book?
You know, that's hard to narrow it down. That's hard to narrow it down. Dan Kennedy and Keith Cunningham have multiple marketing books. And I think that when people think about business, they don't think about marketing. And marketing is what gets you all your business once you have the business in place. And if you don't do that, the business won't stay alive. So I think marketing, but there's several of those books from Dan Kennedy and Keith Cunningham that are amazing, but I don't remember the names of them. I listen to a lot of stuff on Audible. And then also I like studying economics, like cycles with everything. And there's a book that was written in the 1980s that Tony Robbins actually did an interview with these guys about 6-7 months ago with his platinum membership group. And it's called The Fourth Turning. And it just talks about all these cycles, how there's war cycles and there's, and it's all about the generations. And because every generation, it follows, like the mood of the generation follows the next generation, no different than spring, summer, winter, fall. And if you have these generations every 20 years, the mood changes. And it's very predictable. It's just like spring and fall. It's very predictable how they're going to act. And it's based on whether they grow up in a crisis or whether they grow up in an awakening, or whether they're the kids who grow up from a crisis or the kids that grow up from awakening, and how they react, how they invest, what their values are, whatnot. And right, that's probably one of the most fascinating books that I've ever read.
A lot of great options there. We can check those out. Thanks for sharing. Brian, tell us, what brings you happiness?
honestly, time freedom to where I can go and do. So I'm more of a human doing than a human being. And so I love to do fun stuff, and I love to do fun stuff with my friends and family and create experiences. And so creating experiences with my friends and family is what brings me happiness. I mean, at the end of the day, I choose to be happy regardless, because happiness is actually a choice. It's a state of being, and you can choose to be that, even if conditions aren't ideal. It's all about your mindset. But what brings me joy is creating experiences with my friends and family. And the more money I can make, the more experiences I can create. And that's why I'll never retire. Ever.
Well, then that's going to make my... Go ahead.
I know that's one of your other questions.
That's going to make question number 3 really hard.
So I'll never retire, because retirement equals death to me. Because if you're not contributing and you're not growing, that's where true happiness comes from. And that's according to Tony Robbins' 6 human needs that he talks about, which is, if you're in growth and contribution, you are truly fulfilled, you are happy. And if you are not in growth or contribution mode, then that's where you're not going to be fulfilled. You're not going to be happy. And so growth and contribution is the most important thing. You always got to keep growing. And for me, if I'm always doing more real estate deals or more, whether it's doing real estate deals or public speaking or creating experiences, like that'll never stop.
Well, since our third question is, what does retirement look like to you? Is it safe to say that retirement for you is going to be creating experiences for those that you love, your friends, your family, and continuing to grow your businesses?
Yeah, I mean, by then, technically I could probably do that in 5 years. I could retire today if I decided to pull back on the expenses. But who wants to do that? Especially, and then what would I do?
Yeah.
Twiddle my thumbs. Like, you can only golf so many days in a row.
Yeah.
No, I mean, there'll be times when I put in the work, and there's going to be times when I take a month or 2 off, or 3 months or whatever. But most of the time, there's always going to be a business going on in the background where I'll be doing calls or go make a visit or whatnot. I mean, one of the exits, there's 2 potential exits on the storage unit business. One is just sell the whole. If I end up acquiring 50 or 100 facilities, I'll just sell the whole portfolio to a REIT. Or I could buy portfolios from other people and then just go public as an exit as well. I don't know. We'll see what happens when we get there. At the end of the day, if neither of those happen and I just cash flow until I die, that's great too. But I just don't want to have to put in a ton of time unless I want to. And so when it does come time for at that age where it's time to go travel, then we'll go travel. And that's one of the things that my wife really wants to do. And I didn't want to at first, but I'm slowly getting on board, and that's to see how many countries can we visit.
That's awesome.
And she loves art history and from the 1600s all the way back. And the more that the art that she studies, and for me, it's the ancient history, ancient like hieroglyphics and ancient Sumerian and whatnot. That just all fascinates me. So we'll probably be spending a lot of time doing that kind of stuff.
That's great.
Going to museums in the Middle East.
And you're setting up your businesses and your investments to help support that lifestyle, which is awesome.
Right.
Brian, tell us, what do you think is the best way to give back?
Give back? Most people think that it's either give a man a fish, and some people are either teach a man to fish, and I think it's a combination of both. You need to take your time, give back by teaching the next generation how to create cash flow and how to create their freedom. Because really, the only way that you cannot be subjugated to government whims is to have cash flow, be free. As long as you are working for the man, and if they control your income, then you're a slave. And I think that taxes are going to get worse as we go. I don't think they're going to get any better. So the best way to do that is to be able to control your cash flow and control your expenses, but control your cash flow, and be a business owner or be an investor to be able to control that. No, I just went off a tangent. What was the question again?
What is the best way to give back? You were talking about
what's the best way to give back?
Giving and teaching a man to fish.
So one is you got to teach people how to do what you've done and how to create the lifestyle and how to be free. But there are a lot of people that they can't learn. You can't learn to fish if you're hungry. So there are quite a few people that need to be fed as well. But I'm a big proponent of feeding people, of helping people and feed people where they didn't put themselves in that position. When people put themselves in that position, I have a problem supporting that, because they usually keep on creating that cycle. But people where they didn't put themselves in that position, that's different. So one way is supporting families, and I've talked to my wife about this. We've thought about buying several multifamily properties around hospitals, like children's hospitals, where children are heading in and they don't have a lot of income, and creating a place for them where the housing and food is taken care of for the families that are traveling from out of state to be with their kids at these hospitals. Primary children's, there's people that come from Montana, Idaho, Wyoming that come to primary children's and the families.
Great goals.
Yeah, they don't have a place to go. They can't afford it, but yet they still have their kid. Their kid needs to be at the hospital. And if you ever feel down in life, go to the children's hospital and walk around and see what some of these kids are dealing with, and what they and their attitudes towards life, and you'll start to realize that your attitude really sucks. Because they're dealing with stuff that they didn't cause for themselves, and they have really great attitudes about it. My daughter, we ended up spending quite a bit of time in primary children's with my daughter, because she's got a lung disease that she was born with. And so luckily, she has something that she can handle and she can deal with and whatnot. But so many people don't have that situation. And so helping families that don't have the ability, that didn't put themselves in that situation, and they actually really need the help, or they may be forced into bankruptcy, or only part of the family could be there. That's kind of where I want to give back.
I like your statement. You can't teach a man to fish if he's hungry. That's powerful.
Yeah.
There's a difference between creating dependency and helping somebody out in a time of need, and then you can teach them. That's
right.
That's powerful. Roger, do you have any follow-up to any of that?
Well, I definitely am seeing a recurring theme with a lot of the, upper up people that we talk to, and there's going to be some things that don't need to be said now, because we had the same conversation with Ben Kerr, and I told him, so I'll tell you just so it is said. One of the things that's happened to me lately is I've kind of stepped out of the Utah RIA luncheon coordinating position.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't leave the board. I don't want to leave the board. I just want, a renewed energy. So I'm going to move into a youth position where I am going to try and get like 17 to 25-year-olds and teach those kids to fish in real estate. Like if I could teach them even fractional parts of, this is how you flip a house. You're going to be a part of this. When we do this, Then we'll move into this is how you rent a house. If they get like some sweat equity where they have a little bit of ownership, at the end of the day, it'll be a big thing in their lives. It'll teach them, oh, I actually am earning more money with this real estate than I would be if I was doing a job at McDonald's. It takes longer to pay it off and then do that. And I'm still kind of trying to create a curriculum and a syllabus. And, it's not like a real charity thing on my part, because I also want to bring my kids into it. I have 3 sons that are ages 17 to 23 right now. And I know I need help with that. Like, I'm not a perfect dad, but if I could get that to a point where I could teach that over and over and then have them see and everything else, it would reinforce that in their mind. So, yeah.
Cool. When you're teaching them, if you want someone to come in and as like guest speakers, I think that's one of the best ways to teach the kids is to bring in guest speakers that match up with your syllabus.
Yeah, I'm already thinking about how I'm going to get you in there. I'm like, I'll do the 101 class and you do the 202 class or 505 class, whatever you want to be.
Whatever. I'm willing to help.
Brian, we appreciate you being here with us today. Are you willing to share with us, our listeners, how they can get a hold of you online, on social media? What's the best way to get in touch with you?
Honestly, I got Facebook and Instagram, and I don't really post a whole ton on there. I'm kind of anti-social media in a way, but I still know that it's necessary. Like, I don't like to spend a ton of time on it, but I do. I didn't set up an Instagram account until like last year. I reluctantly did so. And then I have my Facebook account, but my name and phone number are easily found. If someone wants to reach out, if you want to talk about storage, or if you want to talk about storage, getting your storage property managed, or if you have a property that you're not selling to these guys already and you want to reach out to me, great, give me a call. Are you guys putting the information up on the screen, or
we'll put it in the show notes for everybody?
In the show notes, perfect. And that's good. But yeah, or if you're going through a major health challenge and need to talk about it, give me a call. I can help there probably most.
We appreciate you being so open, Brian.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us on the Retire Wealthy and Happy podcast. We'll see you next time.
Hope you got value from this episode. And if you have a minute, then take the time to leave an honest written review for the podcast, because we take those reviews seriously and it'll help us serve you better on the next episodes. And most importantly, be sure to start taking action so you can control your financial future today.